Grown men, who was the last person you trusted enough to cry in front of? My biggest dream in life was always to be the world's greatest dad. Ever since I was a teenager, I imagined myself sipping hot coffee out of a cheesy Father's Day mug, dropping my kids to sports practice, and posing for family portraits, making silly faces I was too old to make. It was a simple dream, but a perfect one. That dream came true 5 years ago. The day my wife and I brought Isabella home was the best of my life. I spent that night by Isabella's side, singing off-key lullabies and changing her diapers. I talked to her about how one day she'd come running home from school, her little arms high in the air, handing me drawings she'd made of Super Dad. I couldn't wait for that day, but unfortunately, life isn't like the movies. My wife developed postpartum, something doctors forewarned because of her pre-existing mental disorders. They said she might experience mood swings, but not much more. Well, it was much more than mood swings. Within 4 weeks of Isabella being home, my wife began lashing out. Seemingly overnight, she became angry, erratic, borderline schizophrenic and violent. She'd throw things, scream at Isabella for crying, curse me out. I remember sitting down with her one day. "Please, let's see a doctor," I begged, but her eyes were stone cold, piercing daggers into my soul. Before I knew it, she was shouting again, her roars making Isabella cry. I had to lock myself in Isabella's room and hold her for hours. Over time, my wife's temper turned Isabella fearful. She began barely responding to me. The silly faces I made that she used to laugh at now resulted in empty stares. Her cries were no more than quiet, scared whimpers. She was no longer the happy kid growing up in a warm, loving home. Instead, she was a scared, terrified girl who had even stopped crying just to not give her mother a reason to yell. I remember feeling like a failure every time I held her. It's actually on her first birthday, I decided I was done. She spoke her first words that day. Stop. I was confused at first, but then it hit me. Throughout the first year of her life, she had heard me begging her mother to stop more times than she heard the words mama or dada. That's why she was saying stop. My heart shattered, and I initiated the divorce process not long after. The divorce was tough, extremely tough. My wife was nastier than ever. She manipulated me into getting my house. Family courts favor the mother, she threatened. I called her bluff at first, but then she sent me pictures of self-inflicted bruises on her body. Fearing she would say I hurt Isabella next, I conceded. And after the divorce was done, I used whatever I had left to rent the cheapest one-bedroom apartment I could. The day me and Isabella moved in was the hardest of my life. It was like the world was ending, like everything was imploding. But then I looked at Isabella, and she was giggling while playing with hand. Dada, she said, biting my thumb. I almost cried. This was the first time she called me Dada, and that single word, that cute little Dada, gave me all the motivation I needed. Slowly, but surely, I started working my way back up in life. Sure, it was hard. I barely slept, eating air for breakfast, just to buy Isabella new clothes and toys as she grew. My eye bags were heavy. Truthfully, I felt like a zombie. But then I'd see Isabella's precious smile, and it would fuel me to wake up in 4 hours and go again. Over time, Isabella changed too. She went from being afraid to cry, to bawling her eyes out when she needed a diaper change. Most would have found it annoying, but I found it beautiful. She was overcoming her trauma. Soon, she started hugging me and demanding cuddles. As she got older, she began refusing to sleep until I told her a story. And then came the day that changed everything. I came home from work on a random Wednesday to find her drawing. She told me to close my eyes and wait, so I did. And when she told me to open them, I burst into tears. It was me and her as stick figures, holding hands, with "Best Dad Ever, I Love You" written on top, and a little note for me on the other side of the page. I looked up at her, and her brown eyes sparkled, gleaming against the light. I scooped her into my arms and nuzzled her into my chest, trying to hold back tears, but I couldn't do it. I cried on her shoulder, my tears streaming like a river. She wiped my tears with her sleeve, and told me if I was crying, she needed to cry too. She then burst into a dramatic fake cry that made me laugh. It was the best day of my life. Sadly, what followed was the worst day of my life, because not even a week later, her mother contacted me. She wanted Isabella, and was taking me to court in an attempt to gain full custody. The full story, where the mother tries gaining custody, is on my channel, and linked below.